podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. You can become an everydayer by listening and watching every day. You can make that easier on yourself by subscribing to get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live. And if it's your first time listening, watching, welcome. I'm Ben Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. And we've been doing this podcast here since 2019. We've each covered the team for over a decade in our own way. And we've been Dodger fans our whole life. So we've seen a lot of Dodgers. And today we're going to talk about, you guessed it, the Dodgers. It was a big win for the Dodgers. I guess closer than we thought maybe. But either way, Ha-Seong Kim's first career start looked pretty good. The Dodgers may have lost Teoscar Hernandez. We'll talk about that in the second segment. And they still have a spot open in the rotation unless they're going to fill it with Ben Kasperius. We're going to talk about that in the third segment. But let's start off with Ha-Seong Kim in his first career start. We saw him play an inning of defense in 2 games ago. And then we saw him on the base pass in yesterday's game. And we got to see the full arsenal in this game and a couple hits, stolen base, a lot of smiles.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Roberts, after the game, was talking about Kim and how much his teammates love him and talking about his confidence level. And just he didn't look overwhelmed or overmatched. And I'm a big believer in pump the brakes. I know one game is way too early, even if you count yesterday and his pinch running, it's way too early to make any big proclamations. But also, I'm a big believer in if dude has a great game, especially in his first career start, you talk about it. And this was an excellent game. He got his first hit, first 2 hits, his first run scored, first RBI, scoring your first run on the hardest hit home run of the season in Major League Baseball, hit by Shohei Ohtani. 3-degree launch angle, 847 mile an hour exit velocity, just destroyed that ball. So that's got to be fun for Kim. And played good defense, showed off the nifty glove on a play that they didn't end up getting an out on there in the 8th inning, but cool play anyway. Just when you look at what he brings to the table and the fact that they don't need him to be a superstar, just come in and give quality at bats and play quality defense and run the base as well. He also got a second career stolen base. Like he's a ball player, and it wouldn't surprise me at all, even though I've seen, like I said, talking about pumping the brakes. I see people saying, well, let's not go overboard on this. He still has development to do. And I agree with that, but I'm not totally convinced that development can't happen at the big league level, because as I've said many times, there are some things that you can only learn about playing in the big leagues by playing in the big leagues. And like, we thought Kim might make the big leagues out of spring training. That was the plan, or at least the hope going into spring training, was he would make the big league roster. And so the fact that he didn't was the anomaly. And so if he's ready to play in the big leagues and bat 9th and be that guy who gets on base at a reasonable clip right in front of Shohei Ohtani, puts pressure on the pitcher, splitting the pitcher's attention with Shohei Ohtani at the plate seems like a good formula to me. Yeah,
this basically just showed us, I don't know about the ceiling of Kim, but basically what they would want out of him, a guy that can make contact, the guy that can get on base ahead of Ohtani, a guy that can, cause havoc on the base pass, and, a guy that can play defense. And whether it's at second base, whether it's at shortstop, whether it's in the outfield, he's played all over in the minors, and that's kind of the expectation of what will be here. Essentially a left-handed version of what Kike and Taylor have been for the Dodgers for the last few years, on and off for Kike. But it's one of those things where, is he going to face a better pitcher and probably, not get a hit? Probably. Is he going to go into a slump at some point? Yeah, probably. But so does everybody else. It's just a matter of what he does when he's not in a slump. And that's kind of what, and how often he can avoid going into slumps. And that's all realistically what you need to be a good major league player offensively. Defensively, a guy that can play multiple spots and be very fast serves value, and Chris Taylor's doing that in a sense. He's not extremely fast, but he's faster than everybody else that they have pretty much. And he plays multiple spots on defense. And, he gets an occasional hit. He hit an RBI double in this game. So if that's what Kim can be and he can grow into more, it's exciting. And, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, we might get to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you talk about fit on this team, on this roster, the needs they have, a guy who can put the bat on the ball, who can run the bases, who can play good defense at multiple positions. It's hard not to like having a guy there.
And bring good vibes.
Yeah, and bring good vibes for sure. His teammates love him. And, the question is, can you find enough playing time for him that it won't hinder his development? And at this point, between the positions he can play and everything else, yeah, I think that answer is probably yes. And even, obviously we have still another 5 days until Tommy Edman comes off the IL, 4 days, I guess, before he's even eligible to come off. We'll see if he comes off immediately. Hopefully he will. But like we talked about last night, even with Edman out, you can probably find enough plate appearances for him in one of those roster spots that is currently providing very little.
Yeah, and with Kim, I feel, I'm not sure how the Dodgers feel, but at least I would feel like it's a little bit different. When you draft someone or you sign someone internationally when they're 16, you probably are very involved and very careful with the development because, you want them to become an everyday major league type guy. With Kim, realistically, the money's already invested. They've already signed him to a contract. He's going to get what he's going to get. And if you need a guy that just, maybe starts once a week, twice a week, but brings you all these other things that we talked about, he can be that. I don't think the Dodgers are going to feel handicapped by saying, we want this guy to develop. And unless they promised him that when they signed him and they said, hey, we're going to, develop you and want you to be more of an everyday player, not necessarily a bench guy. I don't know what they did when they signed him, but if they didn't tell him that directly, I feel like they're not as inclined to worry about development if he's a fit right now.
Especially, yeah, for sure. Especially because he can do so many of those late game things. So even when he's not starting, he is a huge weapon off the bench, pinch running for, you name it, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Michael Conforto. He pinch ran for Andy Pages the other day because he's one of the few people on the team faster than Andy Pages. You can pinch run him for anybody, and it's a speed upgrade. And the defense, you can pinch, put him in late inning defense, even if it's just, center field, because it's late in the game. We're going to get Teoscar out of there or Conforto out of there, slide Pages over, put Kim in center field. So many ways that you can get him in the game, even when he doesn't start, that even if he's only getting 2 or 3 starts a week, I think there's a lot of value he can bring to this team.
Yeah, and some of that value may go beyond Tommy Edman's IL stint because Teoscar Hernandez came out of the game early. It appears he tweaked his hamstring. Dave Roberts said it was a little concerning. So when Dave Roberts is saying that, it's probably a little bit more than a little concerning. What's going to happen if Teoscar goes down? We'll talk about it. Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. I'm sure there's come a point where you've checked your bank account and you wonder, man, where did all my money go? Where's all this cash that I make or money that I make? Where's it going? Well, between dining out, online shopping, Dodger tickets, entertainment, whatever it is that you like to do, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in because they're your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. If you start using Monarch Money, you'll realize how much you spend on certain things, and then you can budget smarter and save more. And instead of juggling all the multiple apps that there is out there, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term